Hi there, I'm Noah Bradley, and this is Handmade House TV. And yes, I'm standing once again near my crab apple tree, and the bees are just a buzzing today. And by the way, I really wish you could smell. I wish there's some way I could transmit this, but it's the most beautiful perfume smell. If you've ever been interested in planting a tree, I highly recommend a crab apple. I've planted my share of apple trees in my life. I wish I had spent the same amount of money buying apples rather than apple trees, because I haven't had the greatest luck with harvest. But I have always had tremendous luck with crab apple trees, which are just known for their beauty. They do make little apples, but particularly the bloom in the springtime is just phenomenal to experience. On today's episode, I got 2 more viewer questions for you, so stay tuned. Well, okay, thank you for tuning back in here to Handmade House TV. I've got 2 questions, viewer questions. If you ever have any questions, please, by all means, send them to me. I'm Noah at handmadehouses.com. I love to answer questions for people. Try not to make them too general. Try to make them specific, and try to keep your questions to one question, and be patient with my response. Sometimes it can take me a week or 2. I get a little bit backlogged on emails, and it takes me a while to respond to them. But I'm an old man that's been building log cabins and handmade houses, timber frame and stonework, for 30 years. I'm focused the last couple of years on creating a video academy series that you can learn all about over at handmadehouses.com. And my whole purpose in life now is just to pass on to you the tips, the secrets, and insights that I've learned in the process of building really special homes, ones that have been featured in magazines and newspapers. I don't want you to build your nightmare, I want you to build your dream. So anyway, question number 1 is I'm beginning to plan my log home, and I'm very inspired by your videos. I'll be milling square logs and joining them with half dovetails. I'm wondering what you would consider the optimal gap between the logs. And do you favor using cell foam backer rods behind the chinking? No, I don't use any kind of cell foam backer rods. I have put together a Chinking Academy. If you're interested in just learning how to chink, you ought to check that out. It's a great video on how to do that. And I'm a little bit confused, and I'm always concerned when someone says that they'll be milling square logs. You never want to mill all 4 sides of your logs. You're wasting 2 precious sides of it, and you're creating a log cabin that's going to look manufactured. If you're going to the trouble of handcrafting your own log home, why do you want it to look like something that came out the end of assembly line, that came out of a factory? So you want to build a log cabin, and our ancestors, they proved this over the course of centuries, building hundreds of thousands of log cabins that endured for hundreds of years. There's still thousands and thousands of them around. They learned how to do it, and how best to build a log cabin is what I've been sharing with you in all these videos here on Handmade House TV, and that is that they would hew the inside and outside faces of it, so they would be cut with faces on the inside and outside, but they leave, and so have I, you always leave the tops and bottoms of your logs with their natural curves and contours. It gives you more log to work with, you're less wasteful in doing it, and that all the benefits of sawing or hewing your logs are achieved through this process. But the big thing is the aesthetics of it. When you leave that natural curve and contour of the logs, and the expansion of how it varies in size from one end to the other, that it looks handcrafted, it looks natural. You haven't removed nature from your home, which is something you really want. And by going with logs that vary in size and shape and perhaps species, that have contours, that have rounded edges to it, that you end up with chink gaps that are irregular in size as well. On the log cabins I've built, sometimes the chinking is as small as 2 inches, and I've seen historic log cabins that literally you could have 1.5 to 2 foot chink gap in it, which is we're on the extreme end. I think the saying among old log workers was that's wide enough you could throw a dog through. Of course, I would never recommend throwing a dog, but that would give you some indication of how wide a chink gap can be. I think from my perspective that I do a lot of I like chink gaps. I like them very much, and you probably figured that out here from Handmade House TV episodes. There's a lot of reasons for having a good, healthy chink gap between the logs. Everything from making the inside of your house brighter, to following historic precedents, to it's a great place to put electrical outlets. And so typically when I do it, I found that the most durable, the most easy to apply, the most functional, the most useful ones is generally a chink gap of about 4 inches. You can go down to as small as 2 or 3. It's getting a little bit tight, and you can go up to as much as, say, 8 or 8 inches before things get a little bit wonky. It gets to be a challenge to apply cement over that big of an expanse. So I think that probably answers the question. Do not mill your log square. If there was a magic number to keep in mind for your chink gaps, probably 4 inches is ideal. And that's it. Okay, so the next question I have for you, gee, I should be better prepared for this because I'm not really prepared for the answer. All right, well, this individual is asking about whether or not I would recommend him moving forward on a log cabin that he's been offered, an old vintage one, basically free for the taking down. And it sounds like there might be an issue with regard to it being pine and whether or not that's a good thing to work with. Pine can be an absolutely beautiful, brilliant log cabin. It can be very attractive, but it's also of all the species of wood, much more so than any hardwood species, more prone to insect infestations. And so I really recommend that before you get involved with anything, any vintage log cabin, and in particular pine, that you really scrutinize the logs well. You don't want to end up with a problem on your hand. The reality is that when you're working with logs, when you're putting up your log cabin, that the logs are actually percentage-wise in the cost of your entire home, your entire log home. The logs can often only be 10 to tops 20% of the cost of the home as a whole. And so if you're building a log cabin, and you want to make sure and pick the best logs you possibly can. And it's easy when we're offered in life a bargain deal, or to do some penny pinching shopping in order to get save as much money as possible on our logs, that frequently we're tempted to seize upon going with something a little bit substandard in order to save money in building our home. But when we get finished with building our log home, the essence of it, what we're seeing, what everybody's admiring, the reason why we built it is for the logs. So I do my best to encourage everyone to acquire the best logs they can that they can afford. And there are log cabins out there that are just ridiculously priced that people can't afford. You can't rationalize how much they cost. But there are a lot of higher quality cabins that somehow or another we can justify the expense of it. So when building your log home, go for the best logs you can, not the best deal you can. And in the end, you'll be much more pleased with the finished result if you do that. So anyway, I hope these two questions helped you out. Maybe one of them applied to you, maybe both of them did. If you want to know more about how to build a log cabin, I created the Log Cabin Academy. I'm known as the log cabin guy. The first log cabin I ever built when I started my company way back in 1988 made the cover of Country Living magazine. And that was over 30 years ago, and I've only gotten better since then. And I really want to pass on to you how to build a log cabin. And it's extremely reasonably priced. It walks you through It's over 8 hours. It walks you through step by step how to build the best log cabin you can. One that when you get done, you won't regret what you've done. I've early on in life, I built a house or two that I regretted building. And regret is a terrible thing, but regret when you're tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars invested into something is not something you want. It doesn't take but one simple insight in order to give you the best, in order for the course to be well worth its price in order to sign up for it, and perhaps even consider upgrading it to the Handmade House Guild, where you could get not only that course, but the Handmade House Academy, the Stonemason Academy. I promise you, I'm working on the Timber Framing Academy. I know progress is slow, but there's so much going to it. It is by far my most challenging academy I've put together, and this coronavirus epidemic that's going on is not helping things. So anyway, before we close, I would like to thank 5 new members of the Handmade House Academy. And let's see, where did I leave off? Let's go with Clay Morrison, Drew Lehman, Justin Cronkite. Man, I was a big fan of Walter Cronkite back in those days. I don't know if you're any kin, but if you are, you're a blessed man. David Burdett, and Clardy Schwartz. Boy, I hope I got your name right there. I do apologize. I'm not the greatest orator in life. I wish you guys had a better host, but I believe I'm one of the most gifted log cabin guys, handmade house guys, stone guys out there. Unfortunately, I'm not the greatest video guy. So anyway, you take care. Think of the world of all of you. I look forward to seeing you here on Handmade House TV next week. And I managed to survive today's entire episode without a single bee bothering me. I love bees. I was a honey guy for a while there, so I love little honeybees, very much so. Anyway, you guys take care, and we'll see you here on Handmade House TV next episode. Take care. Bye now.